Hello, everybody. Happy Monday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first, we just hit 2,220 subscribers to the YouTube channel. Shout out to all the subscribers, and a special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, including new channel member Devin Corns and elite channel members HaWKxXA, Brandon Mikel, Rip, Scott Todd, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tiger 75, Salacious Crumb, and John Harper. All right. We've made it to the end of the season, end of the regular season anyway. And looking back on the 2020 regular season as a whole, we would say it was a successful season. It could have been more successful, sure. We could have sustained our offensive output from the first part of the season throughout the entire season. Sure. We could have won every single game we played outside of possibly the game in Buffalo. Absolutely. We could have gotten a 2 seed or a 1 seed. But collectively, if you take a step back from all those coulda, woulda, shoulda things, and you look at the 2020 regular season that resulted in 12 wins and a division title, it's a successful regular season. Now, can we make that mean something by making a good playoff run? That remains to be seen. But for the moment, I would consider the 2020 regular season to be successful. So, with that in mind, let's celebrate it a little bit before we actually get into the stuff that really matters. Because, look, as a fan of this current iteration of the Seattle Seahawks, I firmly believe that the goal for this franchise needs to be winning the Super Bowl. I know you're not going to win the Super Bowl every year because nobody does that, but the goal for this franchise should be Super Bowls. But that doesn't mean we can't celebrate the little cool things that happen on the way. It doesn't mean that the little milestones and little accomplishments you get to in week 10 or week 15 or even week 3, it doesn't mean they don't mean anything. It doesn't mean you can't celebrate them. If you do not appreciate the little things on the way, then you're going to end up miserable a lot because the big things just don't happen that often no matter how good you are. So I've expressed some negativity about the direction of this team lately despite winning more than we've been losing. So this video is going to be, let's celebrate some of the successes of the most recent game and most recent season and see who accomplished what in 2020 and how we can best honor their accomplishments. So first, the big accomplishment that the 2020 Seahawks made bears out pretty significantly right here. You can go to the Pro Football Reference franchise index for the Seahawks, and you can see they scored 459 points this year, which is an all-time franchise record. They have never scored this many points in a regular season before. The closest they ever came was back in 2005, where they scored 452. So we have now broken that record. We have never scored more points in a single season than we have in 2020. Obviously, most of that is because of what we did in the first half of the season. It looked like the Seahawks had a chance to be one of the greatest offenses in NFL history after 6 or 7 games. And we ended up not even being in the top 5 in 2020. So I understand that a big reason why we have this many points is just because of the direction that the league took this year with regard to how many points the average offense was scoring. Regardless, 459 points in a single season where you did not have a single defensive or special teams touchdown is pretty impressive, and I am happy to give the team credit for what is a franchise record. Now, let's take a look at some of the milestones that I was talking about last week. Who achieved what in the final game of the season? Did we manage to accomplish anything significant in terms of personal milestones? And again, I know these stats are not going to get us to a Super Bowl, but that doesn't mean we can't celebrate them. Like I said, if you don't know how to celebrate the little stuff, you're going to be miserable a lot because the big stuff just doesn't happen that often. So, Russell Wilson, let's start with him. He set a personal best, team best, and all-time franchise best completion percentage at 68.8, which broke his own record, which was also the team record. His 68.8 completion percentage in 2020 is the best any Seahawks QB has ever done over a full season. So he was able to maintain that, even though he did not have his best game against the 49ers. He also had 2 passing touchdowns, giving him 40 on the season, which is a personal best, franchise best, and only the 15th season by any quarterback in the history of the NFL to have 40 or more touchdown passes. So he is now part of a very exclusive group with the Peyton Mannings and Tom Brady's and Dan Marino's and Kurt Warner's and Aaron Rodger's of the world. This does not happen that often, and I know we were frustrated with him as the season went on, and he actually had some games that were downright bad, but he still managed to get to 40 touchdown passes, which is a significant milestone. I know we all thought he was going to get to 70 at one point, but hey, sometimes dreams don't become reality. And finally, he did manage to get 16 rushing yards yesterday, which gave him more than 500 on the season, meaning he now has 5 seasons in his career of at least 500 rushing yards. The only 2 quarterbacks in NFL history who have more are Randall Cunningham and Michael Vick with 6. So if Wilson can find a way to maybe lose a little weight this offseason, get a little quicker, and get a little more decisive with his scrambles, he may very well become the most prolific running quarterback in the history of the NFL by the end of his career. All right, so moving on, Chris Carson, I said yesterday that he needed 1 reception to get to 100 career receptions. He did do that, so he now has 100 career receptions as a Seahawks running back, which, hey, that might have been his last regular season game ever, so we don't know if he's ever going to get another one, so that's cool. And he also topped 250 receiving yards on the season for the second straight year, which I think is significant because when he came into the NFL, Chris Carson was not exactly known for his receiving ability out of the backfield, and now he's developed that into a decent part of his game. All right, so now we're going to move on to the ones that I think everyone kind of knows about, Metcalf and Lockett, because the Fox network was doing an adequate job celebrating these milestones, but let's go over it anyway. DK Metcalf needed 6 receiving yards to top Largent's all-time franchise record of 1,288, and he did it. He passed it. He went all the way past 1,300, so he is the first receiver in franchise history to top 1,300 receiving yards in a year. And yeah, his 2020 may very well be the most prolific season by any Seahawks wide receiver ever. He also needed 3 receptions for the 5th best season in franchise history in terms of number of receptions. He did it. He got to 83. Only a few players in Seahawks franchise history have topped that 83 number, so seems relatively significant to me. I would definitely call that a very successful 2020 for DK. Now we have Tyler Lockett. I think everybody knows about this one as well, but he needed 7 receptions to top the franchise record of 94. So Bobby Engram and Doug Baldwin no longer own this piece of Seahawks record book history. Tyler Lockett leapfrogged past them with his not only 7 receptions on Sunday, but 12, which got him to 100. So Tyler Lockett has now become the first player in Seahawks franchise history to have 100 receptions in a season. And I know this is something that happens all the time now. We see players have 100 or more receptions every other season, it seems like. And sometimes we have multiple players doing it every season, but Tyler Lockett's the first to do it for the Seahawks, so hats off to him. He also managed to top 1,000 receiving yards on the season for his second straight year. He managed to get to quadruple digits, so good on him for that. He also yesterday was able to pass Bobby Engram for 5th most receiving yards in franchise history, 4,860. He's close to 5,000, and it seems very likely he's going to have the opportunity to get that next year, so he is now the 5th most prolific receiver in franchise history, and he also needed 1 touchdown to pass Daryl Turner for 5th most receiving touchdowns in franchise history. He had 2, so in every regard, he is becoming one of the best receivers in Seahawks franchise history. So Lockett did a lot of stuff yesterday to improve his legacy as a Seahawk, and with that, we're going to go ahead and jump over to the defense now. Bobby Wagner had a relatively muted game against the Niners. He played fine. He did not exactly make a ton of plays out there, but one thing he did do was pass Jeremiah Trotter into the top 50 all-time for solo tackles made in a career of 724. So he is now one of the 50 most prolific solo tacklers in the history of the NFL. He's had a very long and prolific career as a Seahawk, so it makes sense why he would be on the precipice of knocking down some of these historic milestones, and there's a decent chance he'll be back next year to knock down a few more. So, Bobby does manage to pull that off. Jamal Adams, I know we're all a little worried about him right now, but one cool thing that happened yesterday that I think is worth noting as we celebrate a so far successful 2020 season is he did score a tackle for loss, which gave him 11 on the season, which is his personal best. This is despite missing 4.5 games. So I think it's safe to say Jamal Adams was a big-time playmaker for us this year, and 11 tackles for loss from the safety position seems pretty historic to me. You don't see safeties do that often. Jordan Brooks needed 2 tackles to get to 50 as a rookie. He got way more than that, so I know 50 tackles for a linebacker is not significant, but given his limited play time, given the fact that he was a rookie coming off a bum off season, I think that getting 50 tackles is significant, and the fact that he was able to make them effectively and be an efficient and notable part of this defense is a feather in his cap. And this is me, someone who did not like him very much when we drafted him, but he is playing pretty well to close out this season. And finally, Jason Myers had the 9th ever season of at least 10 field goal attempts with 0 misses, and he had the 3rd ever season of 20 or more field goal attempts and 0 misses. He did miss 4 extra points, and that is obnoxious, and that could cost us a game at some point if he misses one in the playoffs, but he is the 3rd player in NFL history to attempt at least 20 field goal attempts in one season and not miss a single one of them. The other 2 are Gary Anderson and Mike Vanderjagt. And finally, we have Michael Dickson, and he didn't quite manage to squeeze out the ultimate milestone of 50 yards per punt over the course of a full season, but he did come close enough to have a top 10 season in NFL history by any punter of a qualifying number of punts. He was able to boost his yards per punt yesterday by 0.3 yards, which got him to 49.6. And that is one of the 10 best seasons by any punter in terms of yards per punt ever. So we just witnessed one of the greatest seasons by a punter in NFL history. It will not be fully honored because he didn't make the All-Pro team, but we know what we saw. We know that we saw something truly special out there. And yeah, Dixon's one of the best punters in NFL history, and his 2020 is one of the best seasons by any punter in NFL history. So that's basically all I had to cover. I just want to make sure that we as fans are celebrating the little things on the way. Yes, I want big things. Yes, I want a Super Bowl title way more than I want any of this stuff. But that doesn't mean we can't take a moment to appreciate the players who excelled this season and helped us get to 12-4 with an opportunity to make this season something special. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. See you guys in stream later today. And I'm sure everybody's going to be buzzing about this upcoming playoff game. But before you do, take a moment to think about the players that made this season possible.